From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. The legislature was back in action today for the fifth day of the session. As a reminder, the Alabama Constitution allows the legislature to meet for 30 legislative days, meaning days when they convene and pass bills, all within a 105 calendar day period. That means after today, we are 1/6 the way finished with this year's session. Today, the Senate took up and quickly passed legislation dealing with elections, and in particular, efforts to maintain their security. Senate Bills 9 and 10 from Senator Clyde Chambliss of Prattville would codify already existing policy dealing with paper ballots and electronic voting machines. The bills passed unanimously.
Well, there's two bills. One of them says that we will always have paper ballots. Now, they can be counted by an electronic machine, that's fine, but what we want is to make sure that we have an audit trail. There's things that can happen to an electronic machine. Lightning can strike, power can go out, that type thing. No matter what, we have a paper ballot. The other bill prohibits modems from being put into our voting machines so that no one can hack into them. We know that if there's any type of modem technology, someone can hack into it. So the best way to keep our elections secure is just not have any modems in our vote counting machines. Unanimously, both Republicans and Democrats are in favor of safe elections. And in Alabama, we're blessed that we do have safe elections. And this is a look-forward bill just to make sure that we don't have problems in the future.
The Senate also passed legislation aimed at creating more mental health, educational, and re-entry opportunities for Alabama's female inmates who are awaiting release. Senate Bill 5 is sponsored by Senator Linda Coleman Madison of Birmingham, who said current female inmates don't have a dedicated facility for this, while their male counterparts do.
This bill is offered by Pardons and Parole. Basically, what it does is establish one female residential center to house the women for training. This is the same model as we have with the Perry County a facility housing up to about 100 participants, looking at a limit of 90 days. It's a reentry program to cut down on recidivism, to provide the resources there for residential, for training, and those types of training for transition as these women get ready to be reentered into society. And that's basically what it does. So if there are no questions, I'd like to move final passage as amended.
That bill also passed unanimously. In the House, lawmakers are still on the regular order calendar, meaning they are taking up bills in chronological order of when they were referred by committee. That led to some sporadic debate about some of the new procedures the House is operating under right now. Getting to legislation, the House debated House Bill 8 from Representative Randy Wood of Anniston. The bill would prohibit the holding of a cell phone while driving, but it does include exceptions for the use of hands-free devices like GPS and texts.
House Bill 8 is under existing law. A person is prohibited from using a wireless telecommunication device to write, send, or read a text-based communication while operating a motor vehicle. With exception, this bill would prohibit a person from watching, viewing, recording, or capturing a photograph on video while operating a motor vehicle. Prohibit a person from physically holding a wireless telecommunication. We were just talking about that a while ago. And it prohibits them from holding a wireless communication device while operating a motor vehicle, and will prohibit a person from engaging in a voice-based communication while operating a motor vehicle.
You know that you can talk on a cell phone without having or holding a cell phone. You're aware of that, right? I can tell Siri, call such and such. And
right.
Okay.
And you could lay it down in the seat.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And so do you consider that a distraction?
Not if you got it on the seat, you're not touching it, you're not looking down at who's calling you, no.
So then how would an officer who stops, how would they be able to determine whether or not you are talking on that phone?
they're going to see you going down the road with it hung up your ear or your shoulders. And if you'll notice, there's more and more people all the time that do just like that. They hold their phone physically up to their ear and their mouth where they can talk. They don't do like what we're just talking about, lay it in the seat.
Right.
If you would stop, call who you need, lay it in the seat, and like one of the ladies that I was talking up there a while ago, she said her car wouldn't pick up good like that. I can't help that, but you lay it in the seat.
After 3 hours of debate and several amendments, the bill was finally carried over, meaning it was set aside with the possibility of being brought back up at the call of the Speaker. Nearly every day, the State House sees demonstrations, protests, or advocacy press conferences, sometimes several. Today, the Alabamians for Fair Justice Coalition held an event attempting to draw lawmakers' attention to the state's low parole rate. They advocated for House Bill 16 from State Representative Chris England, which would enforce guidelines and policies on the Pardons and Parole Board for determining parole cases. The bill was most recently sent to a judiciary subcommittee, which is sometimes used as a way to kill legislation. Advocates want the bill to stay alive.
Having the Alabamians for Fair Justice Lobby Day, which is focused on bringing together we're really excited to see a multi-generational, cross-sectional representation of Alabamians who are concerned about the challenges in our criminal justice system. The truth is that we know each and every day we're hearing more about reported deaths in our prisons. We're hearing more about the precipitous drops in parole rates. We know that Alabama's prison system is not sustainable in the direction it's going, and it's time for more accountability for our lawmakers, and that starts with the people of Alabama coming out today to make sure lawmakers are hearing from them about what they think about the challenges facing our prison system. We support more accountability for this parole board, which has been categorically denying people. Less than 10% of people who were before the parole last year were actually granted parole. That is absolutely not sustainable. That is a problem, and that is not how the parole system is designed to work. So HB 16 brings additional accountability from this building, from lawmakers and from members of the executive branch who will actually oversee the parole board and making sure they adhere to the guidelines that they will be a part of creating. And so those guidelines are right now not being followed, and we know that that is not absolutely how the parole board can conduct itself, and also at the same time say that it's about accountability and justice in its mission.
And that's what happened in the State House today. We'll be right back with Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
We have a labor gap. We have the laborers that from the past they're getting ready to retire, and there's nobody to take their place. That's why apprenticeship's important today. It's because if we don't do that, these contractors are already hurting to find qualified people to work for them. And it's only going to get worse as these men retire. It's really critical at this point that we get some trained craftsmen out there. And it's not just in electrical, it's in every field.
Tony is my instructor in the apprenticeship program. He was my teacher at Allen Thornton. I've done the first 2 years in the apprenticeship program while I was in high school, and then I'm finishing the last 2 while I'm at high school. I'm Mitchell Talbot, and I'm currently an electrician. My dad always done it, and I always wanted to do the same thing he did. My 11th grade year in the apprenticeship program, I did like the core classes. The second year, teach about like bending conduit, like running stuff, and third year is like more into like mechanical.
My name's Tony Brown, and I work at Allen Thornton Career Technical Center where I teach electricity. With me teaching the kids during the day and on the high school level, like Mitchell Talbot, he completed his first year with me. in high school. So when he graduated high school and went into work, he actually started at second year level.
I went to high school at 7 o'clock in the morning, got out at 11:45, and I went to work from 11:45 to 2:30, and I went to class, the apprenticeship program at 5, and then we didn't leave there until about 8 o'clock at night. It's basically you get paid to work and go to school at the same time and learn what you're doing for your trade.
They can graduate already with 1 year of apprenticeship under their belt. That's what you need to look at if you're looking to start. You really need to get the local career tech involved in it and see if you can't work out a deal to where they can get credit for the work that they done in high school.
Joining me next is Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth. Governor, thanks for coming on the show.
Todd, always great to be on.
Well, the big topic of the week, at least so far, is incentives. And the game plan, as y'all announced yesterday, was sort of the big rollout. We wrote about how it was teased for a long time, right? We've been covering, these economic incentive packages are going to be coming. Finally roll it out. So we reported on it, but you've been working on this for over a year, if I'm not mistaken, leading the commission that was tasked with looking into what kind of changes should be made. Are you pleased with the result that ended up being announced yesterday?
Yeah, very pleased with the results. So, we got tasked with the legislature of looking at our incentives and then giving recommendations on what we should do going forward. And so, you look at Alabama Jobs Act, right? It's working. And, other states are certainly looking at what we're doing and trying to, copy that. And so what we wanted to make sure is that we looked at other states, competitors, and, it turned out, our incentive program's working. We're getting 168% return. When you look at that on the Alabama Jobs Act, it's a pay-as-you-go. And, it's certainly working in our state. And then, look at Grow in Alabama, right? And we realized that we need more sites in Alabama that are shovel ready for projects. And we're really a victim of our own success where, companies are continuing to locate here. That's not going to stop. And so we need to make sure from a state we're investing in future sites and, being forward thinking. And so with that, we're going to. And, so both things really excited about. And, I want to say this, it's great to see bipartisanship support. You see what goes on in D.C., the fact yesterday at the press conference, you've got the minority leader in the Senate, minority leader in the House, Republican governor, lieutenant governor, pro tem, speaker, all on the same page. And the reason why is this is working. I used the analogy, yesterday about, it's basically the same thing as recruiting in football, right? If Alabama and Auburn, couldn't recruit in football, then of course they wouldn't be able to compete against other SEC schools. And so you look at that, we've got to have incentives if we're going to compete with other states. And, so I think it's something we've got to do. It's certainly not corporate welfare. And then people ought to be really excited because the fact that our incentives are working the way they are is the reason we have a huge surplus and can give a tax break to the people. It's because they're working. People are moving here. Businesses are locating here. And so Alabama's working. It's exciting.
Well, again, we'll get to some of the tax stuff here in a minute, but you mentioned the college football recruiting. Yeah. In a day full of sports metaphors on or analogies maybe on the in that press conference, because that is the whole thing, the game plan, right, and the coaches and all this kind of stuff. But I really did it like your analogy because you used college scholarships. Like, of course, we're in a whole different world now with NIL, but let's just go with college scholarships. If Auburn and Alabama just stopped using them or couldn't use them, then they'd get they wouldn't stand a chance. So that's, and I guess the reason I thought it was interesting is, in a perfect world, nobody would need incentives, right? Just each state would compete with its own set of policies. But it is sort of this arms race, and we have to be prepared to go to battle, so to speak.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, that's exactly the point we were trying to make on the recruiting side. But if you look at it, other states, so if we looked at, with our commission, right, if no states offered incentives, we would be in top 3 states in the country for businesses to locate to. So then we got to say, okay, states do offer incentives. That's the reality of what we live in. How can we make sure we're competitive to at least stay in that top 3? And so, we're able to do that. And I want to say this, Secretary Canfield does a great job. Governor Ivey's done a great job. The pro tem, when he was, 8 years ago, maybe 12 years ago when that initially got off, Greg Reed carried the bills. And so he understands the importance. And you can't argue with the success. And, so I'm excited to make sure, this week we're going to get these reauthorized or, start the process of that. And we've got to get them passed because in July, they expire.
Yeah. Which is the whole point. I think that's an important part that our viewers need to remember, is that this isn't just random. These statutes are expiring by design, because the point is to kind of force the legislature to reauthorize, renew, modernize them, because things change every 5 years or so.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, I want to switch gears and talk about a topic that you kind of delved into with a big splash, I guess, last week. This is the grocery sales tax. This issue of cutting the grocery sales tax. This issue's been around for 20 years. It's always been kind of, impossible to get through the legislature from when both parties are in charge. Even going back to the Democrats being in charge. You came out the other day and said you're for this. You want Alabama to finally cut sales taxes on groceries. Pretty big statement. Walk me through your thinking on this.
Yeah, so I think first, I'm come from private sector, and so I always want to look at the numbers, right? Can we afford to do this? And my philosophy on government is when government continues to grow, right, and we're doing that because people are moving here, businesses are moving here, and our economy's growing. We have record growth, right, in the ETF and general fund. Our state has seen historic growth. My belief is you give the money back to the people through tax cuts. My belief is also tax cuts are better than a one-time rebate. Nothing against rebates, right? I mean, certainly those are a good thing, but I think tax cuts are permanent, and we're going to continue to see growth in our economy. And so with that, I think I started looking at, okay, what can we do that would impact everybody in this state, and would also, we've been killed, right, by inflation. And so I think the groceries, everybody's got to have it, right? And if you look at it, we're one of only 3 states, that taxes groceries at the rate we do, and one of only 13 states that taxes groceries at all. And so to me, it's the right thing to do. It's a regressive tax, and it's going to allow, and it's a tax everybody pays. Everybody's got to, have food. And so I think it's something we can remove, and it'll help with inflation. And I'm going to continue to push this because it's the right thing to do.
One of the reasons it hasn't been passed over the years is that revenue question, right? You're talking about, depending on your estimate, anywhere from $500 million to even upwards of $800 million, maybe that would not flow into the education trust fund. So the argument has been over the years, nobody wants to take that vote that somebody can come attack you and say, well, you just cut education by $800 million. What I found interesting about your statement is that you kind of argued that we could probably withstand a revenue hit considering all the record surpluses that we're seeing. Am I getting you accurately on that?
No, you're exactly right. I think when you look at the growth and it's going to continue to come in the future, even this year, right? I mean, we're seeing record growth again, and so in 23. And so with that, the question is, I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt our state. I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt education. Mm-hmm. But I also think when government grows, let's give the money back to the people where it belongs. And so I think we can do this. There's different proposals out there, from phasing it out to doing it all at once. But I'm in support of let's actually come up with a plan and to get rid of the grocery tax, forever in Alabama, and that's going to help people.
It's really interesting because I was talking to Senator Reed yesterday, and I mentioned that this has just kind of been the most organic little issue that's cropped up this year, because it wasn't part of the state of the state, or there was not some kind of public issue campaign before the session or anything. It's just individual lawmakers and yourself have individually come up and said, hey, it's time to do this. It makes me feel like there's more momentum behind this maybe than I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think that's one of the benefits of our office, right? I mean, we have the, benefit of the bully pulpit, and so I think on this issue, what I want to use my office for is to help all Alabamians, right? And if we do a tax cut that's permanent, that's going to continue to do that in our state, and so, we're fortunate, and, part of the reasons we're passing the incentives is to keep the growth going. And, I believe that Alabama is going to continue because of what other states are doing in their liberal policy. They're destroying their states. And so people are going to continue to flee and move to Alabama. And with that, we're going to continue to see growth in income tax, sales tax. And because of that, we can cut other taxes, right? And, and that's going to help us continue to let people move here. And so I'm encouraged by, supporting the legislature, to your point. I mean, and also most important, though, is when I talk to people in Alabama, I'm all over the state, right? I'm active. People want this, and this is what they prefer over even a one-time rebate.
Well, let's talk about that rebate, because when I walk upstairs in the halls, especially in the Senate, I don't think it's necessarily that they're mutually exclusive. They certainly aren't policy-wise, but it's almost starting to seem like that. I mean, when you're talking to senators, are they more saying, no on the rebate tax and yes on the grocery tax? Is it an either or do they want to do both?
We're not trying to. I mean, we're certainly, we think the rebate's fine. And, when you talk to people, certainly people in Alabama are fine with the rebate. Who's going to be against getting $400 or $800, right? So we're not against the rebate. And I think in our conversation with the senator, we're not trying to frame it as either or. We're just trying to say, hey, this is a, potentially great opportunity to eliminate a tax that unfairly targets a lot of people that need food. Let's get rid of this, and everybody is feeling the impact of inflation. And so if we can get rid of this, that's going to be a game changer for all Alabamians.
Let's switch gears and talk about Space Command. This article was published in the Washington Post, I guess about a week ago, where David Ignatius had some sources saying that the Biden administration was essentially going to switch the decision, right? Allow it to stay in Colorado Springs and either delay or cancel the decision that was made to move it to Huntsville. There's been some kind of walking back of that article a little bit, but it certainly raised a lot of eyebrows here. I know you're very involved in military issues, here in the State House and around the state. What are you hearing? What's the latest on what the reality is about Space Command actually making it to Huntsville?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need to walk back that statement, because when you look at Alabama, we won based on merit, not politics, and it's important to look at that. We were only deficient in 4 areas. One of those areas was license reciprocity. Guess what? We used to be one of the worst states in the nation. Now we're one of the best because of the hard work of the legislature over the last 4 years and passing 22 bills, dealing with different issues like that to try to make us the most military and veteran-friendly state in the country. But when you look at it, Colorado, that's, claiming, crying foul on this issue, they finished 4th. Right? I mean, so they're sitting there saying they deserve it when they finished 4th in 2 different independent reports that said Alabama is the best place. So to answer your question, we're talking with our federal delegation, and we're going to make sure that, that everybody in D.C. understands that Alabama is the right destination, because of merit, because of the facts, and facts don't lie. And so, I would be very disappointed in the president if he ended up, changing this decision, because then it would be on politics, not on merit.
Well, yeah, and I guess we can't blame Colorado for being pretty upset of losing a significant asset like that. So they're just kind of pulling out all the stops, and I get that. But are you concerned with that politics angle? Because look, they have Democrats in their delegation. The president is Democratic. He doesn't have much of an incentive to reward Alabama, even though this was a decision made by his predecessor.
I don't see how they can overturn that, considering a decision was made and 2 different independent reports backed us up. I mean, Huntsville is the right destination, and it needs to come to Alabama.
Well, a lot of people are paying attention to that. We're all kind of waiting to see what happens with the Air Force. Switching gears, you had another issue that is going to be ripe in committee this week. It's called financial literacy, and it's the idea that children, students coming out of high school maybe aren't as prepared for the real world as they should be. And does the state have a role in saying, okay, we need to give you some basic literacy on how to deal with finances in today's world? You've been involved in this issue. Tell me why it's important.
Yeah, so it all came from businesses. They said, Will, we need help. We've got employees that aren't able to balance their checkbook, right? They don't understand just credit. They don't understand basic financial stuff that a lot of us were taught from our parents. Maybe we were taught in school. And so, we looked at, okay, what are other states doing? I found out, and Representative Andy Witt, that's a banker, right, and a great leader in our state from up in Ardmore, he's carrying this bill and spent a lot of time looking at what Florida did. We've been working with him through the Small Business Commission to, say, okay, what can we do? And also our Workforce Development Commission, both of those, because it aligns to what can we do to make sure every student in this state gets taught what they need to about financial literacy. And we want this to be part of curriculum they got to take in order to graduate and just to learn basic financial skills. It's important.
Yeah, so to get that graduation, to get that high school diploma, you've at least had to be exposed to this basic understanding of things. I mean, I think that can be a sell. Are you hearing feedback from lawmakers yet? I know it's going to be in committee this week.
Haven't had any pushback at all. I think everybody thinks that's something that needs to be taught, and I think obviously with the breakdown in the home, less and less stuff like that's getting taught to students, and so I think anything like that we can do. Just like career coaches are important, right? But I think anything like we can do to help students, make sure that they understand how to manage money. And understand credit, about balancing checkbook. Those are so important just to be able to be a successful citizen once you get out of school.
Oh, yeah. Look, I'll never forget buying a home. I'm like, oh, man, I need a financial literacy course before I did that. We're out of time, but when I have you back, we kind of almost delved into the workforce issue, talking about small business. I want to talk more about that next time you're on, about what you're hearing out there about workforce and really fixing our workforce participation rate. But we're out of time for now. Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth, thanks again.
Always great to be on. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
At 2 p.m. on February 16, 1968, the very first 911 call was made in Haleyville, Alabama. The call was made by State Representative Rankin Veit from Haleyville Mayor James Witt's office and was answered by U.S. Representative Tom Bevel at the Haleyville Police Station on a bright red telephone that was given to the city by the Alabama Telephone Company. Haleyville still celebrates their part in 911 history with an annual festival.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night with more coverage of the legislature right here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capitol Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.